Imagine waking up every single day knowing that your life was not your own. Every decision, every movement you made was controlled by someone else. No freedom, no rights, just work, pain, and survival. That was the reality for millions of enslaved African Americans in the 1800s. Today, we can't fully comprehend what that life was like. But to truly understand American history and the strength of human resilience, we need to look back and face the harsh realities of slavery in the 19th century. This video isn't just about suffering, it's about resistance, it's about rebellion, it's about the incredible courage it took to survive and fight back. By the 1800s, slavery had become deeply entrenched in the Southern economy. Enslaved people were considered property, often treated no better than livestock, and their lives were shaped by relentless labor, violence, and the constant threat of being torn away from their families. Picture this. It's the crack of dawn, and you're already working in the cotton fields. The sun beats down, the work is grueling, and you know that any mistake could lead to a brutal punishment, whipping, beating, or worse. Enslaved men, women, and even children were forced to work sunup to sundown, often 7 days a week. And after hours of backbreaking labor, you return to a small, overcrowded cabin. Food is scarce, conditions are filthy, and disease spreads quickly. Yet despite it all, the human spirit endures. Enslaved people formed communities, held on to their cultures, and passed down stories, songs, and traditions that connected them to their African roots. The threat of being sold away from family was always looming. Husbands were separated from wives, mothers from children, and siblings torn apart, all to fuel a market that saw human beings as commodities. But even in the face of unimaginable cruelty, resistance was constant. It wasn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it was quiet, subtle acts of defiance, small but powerful forms of resistance that chipped away at the system of slavery. For example, breaking tools was one way enslaved people could slow down work. They would deliberately accidentally damage equipment, delaying the plantation's productivity. Others would feign illness, slow down their pace, or sabotage the crops. Music was another form of resistance. Spirituals, those soulful songs you've probably heard, were often more than just music. They were coded messages used to communicate plans for escape or offer hope. These songs told stories of survival, of faith, and of a future where freedom was possible. Hope. That was perhaps the greatest resistance of all. To hold on to hope in the face of brutality was an act of defiance that couldn't be measured. Sometimes that hope turned into outright rebellion. There were enslaved people who didn't just resist, they fought back. One of the most famous examples is Nat Turner's rebellion. In 1831, Nat Turner, an enslaved preacher, led a violent revolt in Virginia. He and his followers killed around 60 white men, women, and children. Turner believed he was carrying out a divine mission to free his people. The rebellion sent shockwaves across the South, and in response, harsh laws were passed to further control and suppress enslaved people. Another significant act of rebellion was John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry in 1859. Brown, a white abolitionist, led a small army of men, including both black and white supporters, in an attempt to spark a larger slave uprising. Though the raid failed, Brown's actions stirred deep fears in the South and fueled the growing tensions that would lead to the Civil War. Beyond large-scale uprisings, many enslaved people resisted by running away. The Underground Railroad became a vital network, led by people like Harriet Tubman, who risked her life time and again to lead others to freedom. Running away was one of the most dangerous forms of resistance. If caught, the punishment was often death or severe brutality. But the desire for freedom was greater than the fear of punishment. By the mid-1800s, the growing resistance to slavery, both from within and outside the South, was reaching a breaking point. The Civil War erupted in 1861, and while it was fought over many issues, slavery was at the heart of the conflict. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring enslaved people in Confederate states to be free. It was a major step toward the end of slavery, though true freedom would not come until after the war, with the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865. The legacy of slavery didn't disappear with the stroke of a pen. Its impact continued through Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws, and systemic racism that echoes to this day. But the story of resistance, of survival and rebellion, reminds us of the incredible strength and courage of those who refused to accept a life in chains. Slavery in the 1800s was brutal, unforgiving, and cruel, but it was also met with resistance, resilience, and rebellion. The fight for freedom, dignity, and equality was carried out by countless enslaved men and women. People whose stories deserve to be remembered, honored, and told. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history that shaped our world.